You dilute your real contribution and choose conformity over authentic expression. Together with Matt Goddard, private advisor to entrepreneurs beyond exit, and the author of the book W.O.R.K, A New Formula, we challenge the drift and provoke a shift into full authorship. Stay true under pressure is the central test of leadership. Like this episode, subscribe and reach out to continue the conversation. My name is Arjan Visser, human-centered futurist and your host. Matt, welcome back to the All Journey podcast.
Thank you. And it's a delight to be here. So thank you for inviting me and thank you for being willing to share the space with me.
Well, I'm really happy. Like a lot have happened since last time. You released your book W.O.R.K, and I think that was a good reason to ask you back in the podcast and talk about your lived experience, your expertise that you all brought together in a book.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been an 18-month journey of getting the book written, and then working out all the processes of laying it out, getting it off to the printer, going through the proofs. You'll know all about that, and then getting it out to people who are interested in reading about work and my particular experience of work and what I bring to that conversation.
So, well, let's just jump in. And my first question would be, what if work isn't something we have to survive or manage, but it is something we are meant to consciously design, redesign as an exchange that serves our lives?
Yeah, what a great opener. I mean, that's really where I started, by my own personal experience of work, which was, I'm guessing that it's similar to other people's experience of work, where you find it a little bit draining, and then more than a little bit draining, and then you are just exhausted from having to or I say having to, living in the belief that if you do your job well, if you keep your employer happy, if you do all the things that you're asked to do, at the end of the day, you'll have built sufficient financial resources to pay your bills, look after your family, and at the end, have a little bit left over for a holiday or something fun.
As you describe it like this, it just feels like we are being squeezed, or we squeeze ourselves. And we need courage in a way to recognize that and take a step forward.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think in terms of the understanding of work, we do squeeze ourselves, but it comes from a conditioning of society that we are there to serve a a bigger organization than ourselves, and we our a modus operandi is to do that, and afford all of the things that get bombarded at us that are perceptions of success. So the car, the house, the holiday, the family, the look.
Absolutely. One word you said, we make ourselves believe, or the system makes us believe that there is something bigger than ourselves.
Mm.
And even when we look to business owners, and I often challenge that, like, it cannot be true that your business outgrows you as a leader. That is provocative, because most of the times it is experience that it outgrows us. And then it brings actually forth in us not an authentic expression of who we are, but more like a control freak to all keep the business in the box and be on top of it and ride it as a wild horse. But the truth, of course, is also like you should grow with your business. It should not outgrow you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely a perception there. I think if you are once you are a founder, I talk about being in a pinball machine in the book. And so when you start out as a founder, you feel like this kind of silver ball in the pinball machine with lots of pent up energy, and you get fired out into the world, and you bounce around these different buzzers, and it's very chaotic and it's very noisy. You'll end up at the bottom, and then you get flipped back up to the top again. And for a period of time, that's exciting and exhilarating. But there comes a point, and it's usually around the £2 to £5 million business size when you're building that. That actually you go, is this what I wanted to build in the first place? Do I still want to be dropped into the machine of the pinball machine, fired again by someone else's expectation, buzzing around the buzzers, and then dropping? And in my experience, living in the corporate world, it definitely felt like the initial coming out of training, coming out of I was in the forces, to coming out of the forces, joining a corporate. It was fun. It was exciting. It was exhilarating. And but after a time, you kind of go, actually, what is this about? What am I doing? Because it's everybody else's expectations that if you like that spring in the pinball that fires you back up to the buzzers, and you're buzzing around all over the shop. And it does to a while feel chaotic, and that chaos then starts to drain your energy. So when you get to 2 to 5 million plus business, and beyond, um, that's when the organization needs to be professionalized. That's when you start to put process in place. That's when you start to have an MD and you have sales targets. Not that you don't have those things before that, but you have a formalized process to get through. And there are maybe shareholders expecting stuff of you. And that then becomes a different machine to when you first started out and it was all fun and exciting and you were building something based upon your sense of purpose.
Yeah, that point where you recognize that it has become something, let's call it different than different, become something more than you anticipated, you prepared. And that could be misread as disappointment,
Mhm, mhm.
but the perspective of that he used for reflection at that point has grown as well. So not recognizing it will just hollow you out and you will have a negative experience.
Hmm.
Recognizing it also asks something of maturity, growing up, courage, because it's time to take a step. So, looking to your formula in the book,
Mm,
you say WO.R.K, an acronym
yeah.
for,
Mhm.
if I got it right on top of my head, willingness, offer, reward, and the kind of life you desire.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's really where I was thinking about this. And my coach, going back a few years now, really challenged me about what what my service looked like. What does service mean to me? And then also in terms of exchange of value, in terms of actually, um, when I'm selling my services as an entrepreneur, as someone who is has a bunch of clients, I am creating an exchange of value. So for the um, process, the approach, the proposition, the product that I offer, in return for something else from the client, whether that's financial or non-financial, but there is an exchange of value going on. But what if that was in the workplace? And so thinking of the word work, it just came to me. I would say through, and in my phrase, sort of spiritual insight, that actually, what if work was just a willingness? And I go into that in the book in terms of what that means, because it's not just a simple, oh, yeah, I'll do that. So, willingness to offer, and you do need to offer. You do need to ask someone if what you're offering is an exchange of value. Like, does this meet your problem? Does this solve the pain that you've got? So, offer my skills and abilities for a reward, and that reward could be financial and non-financial. And in the book, it goes into, if it's financial, then by all means, go and get yourself an accountant, a CPA, a financial advisor, help you think that through. But also the non-financial stuff. There's that, that sense of purpose, the impact that you're creating, the the general warm feeling that you get from having been of service. And all of that helps you then live the kind of life that you want to. And so, in terms of that formula, it is really a conversation to have, or to sit with yourself. Is, what am I willing to offer? Do I need to tighten up my offer? Do I need to tighten up my skills and abilities? Do I need to make them more relevant for a reward? Because relevance is important in getting a reward. Because if people can't see that your skills are relevant, they're not going to offer you something for it because they can't see the value straight away. Because I've got a kind of life that I envisage and want to live. So that became the formula.
Well, you mentioned already willingness has substance,
Mm,
and but even in your explanation, before we know, we put the heaviness on the the offer,
yeah,
and the reward relevance.
yeah.
Um, but I love that you start with willingness, and it just, for me, when I read it, it triggered that in personal growth, we tend to say, take that principle, Moscow principle, that we
Mm,
all know from our business, that what we must be done, should be done, could be done, and what we want to do would be done. And then we always say, let's do the M and do the S, must and should. But from a personal development, it flips the other way around.
mm.
It starts with, what do you want to do? What's in
Uh,
line with you, and
yeah,
then you find your coaches and your advisors and your peers that trigger you what could be done, and you avoid everything that must and should be done if it takes the life out of you. So that willingness, that what
yeah.
do I want to do,
Mm.
is so important, because when you put that aside, you're already in the wrong league.
Yeah, and that's why I like to back into the formula. And now in the book, it gives you the option of going from backing into it, like I prefer, or you could jump forward and read back a few chapters to come from willingness. But I like to be in a space where I'm like, okay, so what kind of life do I want to live?
Yeah.
And then
Am
if
I?
I know what kind of life I want to live, then it's like, okay, well, how do I fund that? What reward would I need to be able to do that? So it's almost a bit of backing into your future in some respects, and going, okay, so what kind of life? If I were to think 5 years out, 10 years out, um, where would I need to be from a reward perspective? And then if that's where I am in terms of the reward that I need to fund that life or enable that life, what are the skills that I need to develop in the next 12, 18, 2 months, 2 years, sorry, in order to achieve that reward? And then actually, if those are the skills and developments and relevance that I need to create, I need to be today and be present with myself. I need to be honest with myself and say, actually, okay, well, am I willing to be intentional about building those skills and talents and abilities and becoming, to use your phrase, am I willing to become the person that I'm called to be, and live into that um, that paradigm, um, or am I going to pretend always to be somebody else and trying to fake it till I make it?
Yeah. So let's make it provocative. Where do you see that leaders uh, who have achieved all their milestones
Mhm.
but still feel that something is missing? satisfaction or the real substance? Where do you see that they are outsourcing the responsibility over owning their own life?
Yeah. Yeah, a lovely question. Thank you. I mean, what a great question. I mean, that's what both of us love to do, is working with leaders who are kind of in that space. Um, and so there's a great synergy between what we do. But yeah, as a leader of an organization, I see other leaders getting to the point where they are kind of they've achieved all their numbers, they've built their business, they've for me they've largely got to a point where either they've exited or they're planning on exiting, and then they go, okay, so I've got a bundle of cash, or I'm earning out, or I've got a bunch of options that are going to mature in so many years. What do I do with myself? What do I do next? And I think the challenge there is being willing to step out of the system and ask yourselves, okay, what system do I want to operate in? Because that then gives you a clue as to the kind of impact that you want to create, i.e., the skills and abilities that you want to offer. Because there's a different kind of reward that is typically around sense of purpose and being and becoming and personal identity. Um, and that then becomes the kind of life that you want to live. So yes, there are leaders that and the outsourcing goes into, okay, so if I've sold a business, I'll immediately create another one, because you're looking for that same feeling that you had when you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, building a business. You're looking for that feeling, and it becomes a little bit of a self-medicating feeling, or it can do. Or you are outsourcing it to the expectation of the marketplace, or the expectation of your peers that you are socializing with, or with your sphere of sufficiency, to use a Dallas Willard word. It's like, actually, my sphere of sufficiency is, and it expects a certain thing of me. So I've got to drive a certain car, wear the, you know, wear the certain clothes, have a certain watch, play a certain game, and that you are outsourcing yourself to those marketplaces or statements that say this is what success looks like. Now, I'm not saying there is value in all of those things. I'm not decrying them, and they are lovely. But it's like, actually, for what purpose are you investing in them?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So they describe, and probably we have the tendency to do the same, is you describe what you want out of it,
Mm,
and before you know, you have used that as a justification to buckle up,
mm,
instead of asking yourself the question, where to
mm.
does that outcome lead to?
Yeah.
No, it's not the end of the line, it's the beginning of a new line. And you say, like, purpose,
Mm,
perspective, r- it's a reasoning and
mm,
not a rationalization of why you are willing to invest, because this comes out and that comes out, and that is a start of where to I want to go. So you are answering the why question, the
yeah.
purpose question.
And is it, in terms of kind of life that I want, the kind of life could be, actually, you know what? I want to create some social good. I want to create some impact. I want to create some legacy. Or, and it could be, I want to make sure I'm there for my children or for my grandchildren. I'm spending time with my dearly beloved. For me, it'd be spending time with my wife and my children, and supporting them in their particular endeavors. Or it might be that, actually, you know what, I want to take at least 2 or 3 vacations a year and go on retreat. For me, riding a motorbike, or fishing a river, or doing those kind of lovely things. Um, all of those things come into the kind of life that you want, which then helps you think about, okay, well, if that's what I want to do, what kind of reward do I need to enable that?
So how does that influence figuring out what your true offer is? Well, maybe you've spent decades of wearing a corporate mask and delivering something that's up or exceeds expectation. But when I got more clarity around what I'm willing to do, because I know with the end in mind, what kind of life I want to continue with it, how does that define what my true offer is?
Yeah, lovely questions. So in the book, there are lots of extra bonus bits of material that you go through the book, and then you can go into the website, find different exercises to do and different things you can do. And there's two ones I wanted to put out to answer that question. And one is the push me, pull me exercise, and that is really asking yourself, um, are you pushing yourself towards work, or is work in that wider sense pulling you? Are you being, do you feel as though you are being pushed by someone else's expectations or someone else's perspective of who you should be, not who you have become or are becoming? Um, or are you being pulled towards creating an impact or a legacy or a kind of life? And then in the exercise, it helps you to look at those two different perspectives and ask yourself some personal questions of analysis. And then further on in the book, there is another exercise around double loop learning, because we can all learn from. If I'm going to use a simple example of riding a bike, I get on my bike for the first time ever. I've never really come across a bike. I think I know how to ride it. I fall off, hurt myself, learn something from them and get back on it. So, and I start to learn something about balance and about how physics works in terms of cycling. Well, double loop learning is a way of being able to go, yes, that is a loop of learning, but actually, double loop learning is about, okay, taking time to actually reflect on that and have some insight and start to test out that insight around things. So within the book, there's an encouragement to experiment, not with big life changing decisions, but with little decisions. So it's like, actually, I'm going to experiment with reading something I wouldn't typically read, or I'm going to experiment with watching something I wouldn't typically watch, or I'm going to experiment with studying something I wouldn't normally study. Because otherwise, we get trapped in the kind of neural pathways that have always served us up until the point where we decide to do something different. And we're not really creating the opportunity to reflect on stuff.
I like that perspective of learning. So it's finding out why, the willingness, and then use learning to actually redefine what your true offer would be that aligns with you.
Mm,
You your business is called 3626,
it is.
referring to Ezekiel, and roughly translated, it means a new heart and a new spirit. Well, choosing that name, that must have put you on a journey to
Mm,
redefine your own offer. And
yeah,
where
definitely.
did you find the courage to unfilter that from the normal, traditional expectation of the executive boardrooms?
Great question again. Courage, goodness. Some might say it was foolishness. um, I could repackage it as courage, but I think I got to the point where I had had enough personal experiences to realize that um, I wanted to choose something different. And those personal experiences came from disappointment, both internally and externally. So in the book, I talk about the fact that um, I needed to have some help with a health condition, and but the way that my mind went to solving that problem was, okay, I know this is probably 20 years out. I'm going to need some help. I'm going to work my socks off to build enough resources so that actually come the day that I need some help or I'm unable to work or something terrible happens to me, there is a storehouse for my family. And the Bible talks about a guy who built up a whole bunch of storehouses. Um, and he's referred to as a fool because actually he's built up those storehouses, and suddenly he doesn't get to enjoy them, because he is working from a personal endeavor. He's not co-laboring with God, with the world, with creation, I should say. It is all about self and ego. And in my sense, yes, it's a lovely thing to care for your family, but I was trying to do it in my own strength, and that almost became a self-fulfilling prophecy because it nearly killed me in doing that. And so, in terms of, you say, courage or perhaps a little bit of naivety or foolishness, I come from a place of going, actually, the experiences that I've had, they haven't filled me with energy, but actually working in 3626, being true to the purpose of that, the desire to help um, people who are maybe similar to myself or different to myself, who are at a point of inflection, who are thinking about, actually, what the heck is going on? I look at the world and it looks very chaotic. What can I do? There are things that you can do, and there is a place where you can come back to your heart. And so, yes, 3626, Ezekiel 36:20, God speaks to the people, his chosen people, and says, I will turn your heart of stone into a heart of flesh. I will help you become human again rather than this hard-hearted group of people. Um, and that's really the message, really. But actually, only recently, um, I've discovered that there is some numerology in 36 as well. So 3 and 6 is 9. Uh, 9 has a particular special place in the world in terms of provision and resources and giving and enabling. So that kind of surprised me. But it was a
Yeah.
kind of byproduct, really, more than anything, any particular intellectual thinking about it.
Well, I think it connects, and it's not, we're not drifting away at all from the subject, which is actually you behind the book and your leadership and your journey in it. And you mentioned earlier, the reward,
Mm,
and traditionally we could just put the reward aside, like that's the compensation for my time and effort. So actually that makes it a positive
mm,
calculation of why I'm doing this. But that doesn't hold when we say no. It's the willingness with the perspective and the why. It is the offer that is truly an expression of who I am, and not my burnout. Then
mm,
money cannot no longer be just the compensation of the effort or the external validation
mm.
of my great ambition. So you need another metric
Yeah,
for the brain to not just get lost.
yeah,
What type of metric do you use yourself?
yeah. Um, yeah, so this has been the kind of journey that we've been on in 3626, is moving away from selling time, and thinking about the value that we're creating. And in the book, I invite people to think about it in their workplaces by keeping their own personal record of both indirect and direct value that they're creating in terms of a metric. And that could be both from a financial perspective or a non financial perspective. So, actually, if you are a problem solver and you've helped a bunch of colleagues and peers solve problems consistently, there's value in that exchange, not only for the individual that has a problem solved, but also for the organization, in that um, people aren't leaving the organization and going through a ton of churn, which is costing the organization both time and money. So there is indirect value in what you do. There are other metrics around sense of purpose in terms of actually, am I creating a systemic impact that is disrupting the perpetual need to kind of prop something up. And I used I used an example the other day. I was at a conference, and it resulted in a slightly unfortunate naming of me of the Donkey Man. And
Okay.
I'll explain that to you. It's like I was trying to explain the situation where I was like, actually, if you are wanting to create an impact, and let's say, for instance, you run a donkey sanctuary, just as an example, you are saving incrementally donkeys by not only what you do, but the grant applications that you make and the support that you get from people who share that value but don't have the time to be able to do it. And so they'll give you their financial resources to enable you to save donkeys. But what if you were to actually change the system that decided to use donkeys in the first place? So, for instance, if you were to invest in something that enabled people to transport their business, their work from from their factory to the marketplace without using a donkey, then actually you've disrupted the system such that actually you've saved potentially millions of donkeys just by that investment, because actually you've disrupted the system.
Yeah.
And so there are opportunities for us to create sense of purpose, but also to create a new system in which offering our skills and abilities and talents create a reward, in this case, saving millions of donkeys, because the kind of life I want to live is in a world where, let's say, donkeys, for that expression, aren't being misused or mistreated in a way, and so actually they get to live their lives in a different way, which is more well-being. Hence, I got denoted or referred to as the Donkey Man because of
Yeah.
my experience, or at least my example. But do you see where I'm coming from in that example? Is actually you do get to use your skills and abilities to create a reward, that sense of disrupting something, to live in a world where whatever that thing is disrupting is no longer perpetuated.
What I hear in the example of the donkeys, like it was your choice to use that example.
Yeah, I know.
But what I hear is that there is something connecting in what matters to you and matters to someone else. And in the connection and what matters to you, we tend to express that as what are our values. Well, when we live our own values, it becomes more that there is an expression of what matters to us. When that's connected, that's what I hear in your story, connected to what matters to someone else, then your values become value for someone else. And that gives more satisfaction. That gives the reward,
Mm.
the fulfilling. You mentioned fulfilling of purpose. That gives real satisfaction, but it's way less tangible
Yeah.
than the KPIs, the hard numbers.
Yeah.
And it needs the explanation that the other letters as well.
Yeah, I get that. I think you can make it tangible if you were to create a metric, which is 1 to 10. How do I feel in terms of my level of, now it'll be personal to you because it might not be the same metric for the same sense of feeling, but you can measure feeling or sentiment or intent in those kind of non-tangible ways. But yeah, I think it is. I think it's a sense that actually being able to create that impact and have that sense of personal satisfaction and deep feeling of actually I've made a difference, is something that a lot of people search for. And so if this formula helps people come to a point where they go, yeah, actually, you know what, this has helped me to answer that question that's been hanging in me about how do I um, answer that gap or that feeling inside of me that feels like a sense of either calling or sometimes emptiness, then hopefully I've created some value in the book to enable people to do that.
Well, if it matters to you, Matt, it matters for someone else.
Indeed, yeah.
So that's, I think, where the courage comes in. Recognizing your work, your offer, and what matters for you, and then finding for who that makes the difference, for who that disruption becomes the blessing. And all, in a way, maybe your biggest KPI, your metric is, does that give you the life that you desire, you have passion
Yeah.
for? So then the work-life balance, and we have bashed it forever on this podcast, the work-life balance, that's not healthy language, because what I got out of your story, your work is life, it's life-giving, and it also funds all the other aspects of life at the same time, parallel or beyond, or
Yeah.
integrated. And it triggers that thought that I shared a while back ago, that puts a different perspective on the term rest. Rest is not just the recovery. It is actually putting things aside so that the play and the rest, the regenerative and the generative, comes together, so that all of it just excites you. It fuels your new ideas, your creativity, solutions that were normally missed, headspace. All those words come together when I think of what type of life could happen when it starts to align. Your busyness starts to align with what you are doing, living.
Yeah.
So how does that must be an enormous impact on daily routines, environments we create, we hold as a leader.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think in terms of kind of life, the book talks about what rhythm do you want in your life? Because what I've noticed, and I don't know about you and others who are perhaps listening notice, is that you might get to the end of a half year or end of a quarter and believe and say to yourself, you know what, I feel tired, I need a rest. And so you go on vacation or you go somewhere else and you are trying to rest within this artificial time space of a week, 2 weeks, however long you take for your vacation. It's like, I must rest.
Yeah.
There's this expectation that you must rest because I'm recharging my batteries. And there is good value in taking time out. But if you're not at rest, if you've just moved yourself from one geography to the other, and all of those stresses and problems and challenges come with you, so whilst you're resting, as the world might see it, or as your peers might see it, your brain is just spinning with all of the things that's not rest. So what we're talking about, you and I think, is actually the kind of life that would allow your body to be at rest and your mind to be at rest and your life to be at rest. Now, there are times when we need to work really hard and we put in tons of hours. And there are other times when we don't need to work quite so hard. What I'm talking about is getting to a place of grounding, of becoming, so that actually the kind of life you want to live is that actually you are comfortable in your skin, and that even though there are challenges, you know a sense of rest. Does that resonate with you?
It does. And actually, listening just to your example, you go on holiday, you wind down for a week,
Mm.
which is where you try not to blow up your relationships at the same time. Then you have this week of rest. You enjoy that nothing is pulling your attention. And then the last week, European style, 3 weeks holiday. The last week, you get all this excitement, new energy, new ideas. And then the first day at work, you're overwhelmed by the backlog of emails.
Mhm.
And the second day, you complain that you want another holiday because you can't keep up with the pace.
You got it.
Yeah. That is not then work, how you explained it to us, doesn't hold. It actually it collapses under pressure, and you only hold it in the last
Mm.
2 weeks of your break. While actually it should hold, stabilize through your
Mhm.
whole life. You still can go 3 weeks on a holiday, or maybe 3 times a week. Those options come as well. They start to work as well.
Yeah.
So how do I hold the concept of that? It's my willingness resulting in the kind of life I desire, and I feel
Mm.
authentically grounded and expressed in. How does that hold? And how do I hold it, stay true to it, when the market seems to be uncertain, expectations intensify,
Mm.
maybe I'm overwhelmed by the chaos around me? How do I hold it?
Yeah, great. The question is in a way, um, comes at it from an expectation that um, work and life are two separate things. And so I've got to hold it during my work. And then I've got to get home and try to kind of recover my batteries. I don't know, I'm not sure whether that's what you meant, but in terms of willingness, it's a willingness to think of something different. And it's the willingness to build the skills and abilities and talents that enable you to have a decision infrastructure that makes decisions in a way that is in alignment with who you are and the way that you want to operate. It's a willingness to build a calendar that has points of rest, or at least points of clarity in it, so that actually maybe each day you take time out to bring yourself back to who you are and who you're becoming. Um, Take time out for exercise, or take time out for just a quiet drink of your tea, whatever your morning routine is, but build your own rhythm and your own routine so that actually that's understanding the kind of life that you want. I want a kind of life where I'm comfortable in myself, I'm grounded in myself. Okay, so what reward would I need to be able to? So, where the reward might be actually, I've got to practice 10 to 15 minutes in the morning or evening where I am intentional about that. And then the skills and abilities are like, actually, if I'm intentional, what does intentionality look like and require of me? So it might be the skill of journaling, the skill of just being quiet, the skill of learning a breathing routine, and being willing then to invest those 15 minutes, knowing that it is an investment of time. It's not a poor use of time, because actually you're investing in your day by taking 15 minutes of clarity, so that actually when you get into the busyness of the day, or the business of the day, however we want to frame it, then actually we know we are living in the rhythm that's going to serve us best. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Yes, yes. Don't worry.
Cool.
You hit the mark. Definitely. my mind was wandering off to you said at the beginning you could read the book backwards.
You
Well,
can.
at least that, I don't know if you meant that, but that's how it came across. Like you start with the end in mind, looking at what kind of life
Yeah.
you want, and in your answer, you it's like you pull forward those things and start to make them already part of your daily routines, which
Mm.
means delaying it to another chapter, to beyond retirement, beyond the exit. Now
Mm.
you're pulling them forward into life,
Yeah.
instead of delaying it, and that creates this need not just for reviewing, realigning your routines, but also the word came to mind, self-governance,
Hmm.
because it's not just a conscious decision to do it here. There is a governance around it to keep yourself from not being overwhelmed and impressed by things that make you step aside from
Hmm.
it, because then it becomes this horrible tension. This is what I want, and this is what I've got myself tricked in again. Now, there is this self governance, ongoing learning, the double loop of learning
Hmm.
you mentioned early, because it's not just an overnight decision. Um, it's quite something to find out who you are becoming and find stability in that,
Yeah.
and still navigating the uncertainty like everyone else.
Hmm.
And it is definitely possible, but it demands more than just self-awareness. It becomes prioritizing identity and personal growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a perfect example in the book. I've created a number of fictional stories, and they're there as the examples to help people who may struggle with, um, let's say, building a picture in their mind, using their imagination. We've all got imagination, but some of us are freer at using our imaginations than others. And I wanted just to be honor the fact that sometimes people just need a story in the book to kind of go, okay, I can see what Matt's trying to get at. But I'll read you one if I may, which is about the motorcycle magician, and it's towards the back end of the book, and it's a fictional story, but it's based upon what I've noticed in people who deliver excellence. And so the story is make believe, but the intention isn't. So it starts off with Leon, who's the character. Leon's motorcycle repair shop operated differently to most others. While others rushed through maintenance checklists, and that might be other checklists that we might have in our lives, Leon approached each machine as a composition. He developed a diagnostic method, distinguishing engine tones like a musician hearing individual instruments in an orchestra. Leon's garage walls displayed meticulously organized tools like an art installation. Customers watched mesmerized as he transformed a routine tune up into fluid choreography. When asked why he freely taught apprentices techniques that took decades to perfect, Leon smiled and said, "The precision isn't mine to keep." He'd say, hands steady on the fuel injector. "It belongs to the craft itself." And Leon's waiting list grew longer, filled with riders who understood that mechanical perfection was Leon's truest expression. And I go on, true willingness emerges when your work becomes an extension of who you are rather than something you do merely for a reward. It flows as a natural expression of your gifts, contributing to something larger than yourself. This kind of service energizes rather than depletes, creating a sustainable cycle of giving and growth.
Matt, how can people connect with you, get a copy of this book, but
Sure.
even more important, connect with you?
Well, you can go to the website, 3626.co.uk. There you can buy the book for £1 plus your postage wherever you are in the world, and read the book, join the conversation, be part of the discussion. There is, as I say, a website associated with the book. You can go on and do the exercises once you've purchased it. You'll get to see the link in the book, and let me know. Let me have the feedback. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. It's not going to be for everybody, and so I'm not in this illusion that it's a silver bullet for everyone. It is an expression of who I am, and so I invite you to get a copy, read it, feedback to me, let me know what you liked, you didn't like, and let's join the conversation.
I will make sure that all the links to the book, to your website, are mentioned in the description of our podcast.
Thank you.
Those who have watched it live have to wait for it, but those who watch the replay or listen to the podcast, the link is in the description. Matt, to bring it all home, if this resonates with a leader, or better phrased, when, because I think it's a matter of when this resonates with a leader, what's their first step they could do to, without disrupting themselves, start making work part of life and take it seriously, that it is the environment for them, for their growth?
First step, I would say first step is take a pause, take a moment, sit with the question, what kind of life would I love to live?
Yeah. What are the 3 things that we take away from our conversation?
3 things?
Just 3.
Yeah. Gosh, I could talk forever, as you'd probably know. 3 things I'd take away is one, I think our alignedness in terms of becoming and who you are and what you do, and there's a lovely synergy between what we do and what we discuss. The other takeaway, I would say, actually, those questions that you've asked me, I would go back, listen to them, and sit with them, and that's what I'm going to do once I listen to the podcast again. I'm going to sit with those questions that you asked me as takeaways myself. And lastly, I would say my takeaway is just thank you for your generosity in holding this call and allowing me to talk about the book, which I am terribly excited about. I do enjoy talking about, and thank you for giving me a small moment of your time to be able to do that.
Well, you're most welcome. And I love how you have brought work back into life and not seeing it as something that we have to survive or escape or maximize or control. No, it's you would nearly say it's the playing ground of life. It's the time we are a time window in our day, in our week, in our year that is so prominent, and it's so vital to not put it aside from life, learning, growth, happiness. So thank you very much for your time, for going after the answers for the questions. And I also want to thank everyone that tuned in, stayed with us to the end. And I truly believe there is something that resonated with you. And there is a space built exactly for that, to resonate, process the question. You don't have to wait for next podcast, because there is what we call the authentic leadership transformation, in short, the A.L.T dialogue, an exclusive peer conversation for leaders who are done with the surface level answers and want to pioneer what's coming next. Use the link in the description to reach out, and I will make sure you will receive the right invitation. The first session will be on me, and I'd love to see you there.